Hello and welcome to episode 15 of the Sandeman Street podcast, a podcast about Dundee and Dundee United from fans of both clubs. As usual, I'm joined by my regular co-host Jack. Jack, how are we today?
Good mate, how are you?
Well, I've been better, but that's the life of a Dundee supporter. And joining us this week is Martin. Martin's back for a bit of a Scotland special. Martin, how are you?
Yeah, the prodigal son has returned. Not too bad, Andy. Thank you.
Good man. As always, if you could follow us on our socials, subscribe to our YouTube channel and like all our videos, that would be much appreciated. If you would like to follow us on Twitter, /X, it is at SandemanSTPod, and on Instagram at the Sandeman Street Pod. So Instagram at the Sandeman Street Pod, and on Twitter or X, whatever you prefer, at SandemanSTPod. Straight into it, guys. I'm a wee bit outnumbered this week. Some Dundee supporters might think it's about a bit of a 2-on-1, but my excuse is that we're all Scotland supporters for this week, so everything's equal. But just before we get into the international stuff, we'll obviously have to cover the weekend's results for the two clubs. So, Jack, United dropping more home points this week against Livingston. What was your initial reaction to that?
Well, I called it. I said last week I thought it would be a draw, and it was. Apparently, from what I heard and what I've seen, United weren't great starting out with the gates. Played pretty poor the first half. Jim Goodwin came out afterwards and said that it wasn't good enough. It seemed like we could have enough chances in the second half to probably win the game, but we never took them. Missed chances, balls cleared off the line. It wasn't meant to be.
Just before I bring Martin in to give his initial reactions, I remember, I think it was when we were doing our Derby special, Jack, and you said that you reckoned that you'd never seen Dundee beat United. And now I'm thinking, I know the reason why. Because you're psychic.
Mate.
Yeah,
I can predict these things.
Yeah, you seem to be calling everything that's happening in United's fortunes in the past few weeks, so when you know that Dundee are going to beat United, you didn't turn up.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much.
I just get a vibe.
Anyway, Martin. Martin, what was your thoughts on the game at the weekend?
It's poor. It really is. From a team that have done so well up until this point in the season, it all seems to have fallen off a cliff since the dominant display against Aberdeen. I wasn't at the game against Livi or Kelly. I've not been to watch United since the Aberdeen game, but you were thinking of going at this one. It's Livi. You should be beating them, but what you forget is that they're a really stuffy team to beat, and this is typical manager chat that I'm away to come away with here, but David Martindale and Livi are not the best football club in the world. David Martindale, no disrespect, is not the best tactician in the world, but you know what? He's got a physical, aggressive, streetwise team, and it's easy to sit and say, oh, it's Livi, they're just been promoted, it's Livi, they've got such a small budget, you should roll over them, but that's not how football works. They're a stuffy, streetwise team, and they're hard to beat. That being said, though, you wouldn't expect them to come to Tannadice and certainly in the first half put the performance in against us that they did. I didn't watch the game, but I listened to it on open all mics, and they were saying that it was just, certainly up until the point when Julius Eskison came off in the 25th minute, around then, it was just all Livi. So whatever Goodwin's done, whatever the mentality has been in the team, it's just not been there for them at the start of that game in that first half. And really, from what I heard, it was lucky that we only went into the break 1-0 down, to be honest with you.
I mean, I have to say, I did actually manage to catch the first half of the match, and it was, as you said, really, it was kind of all Livi. I never seen the second half, but I heard it was a bit more of a turn and it was more United. So a game of two halves, definitely the cliche. A very uncharacteristic error for the Livingston goal from your new centre half, wasn't it?
This is something that I've actually been looking at this week, because you look at the state of some of the goals we've conceded, they've been really, really poor, and there's a definite theme of sort of balls coming in from wide positions and us conceding goals. Now, yeah, you wouldn't say that goal that we conceded against Livingston, that wasn't really a ball coming in from a wide position, but it wasn't a cross. Obviously, Esselink's got the ball on the edge of the box at the side, and he's attempted to pass it back, and he's just not made the contact with it. And obviously, Stevie May's got in there, tapped it into the guy to score an open goal pretty much. But really, Esselink, he's a really good defender, and we've got a team of good defenders. But the problem is, for as good as they are, I think each of them, probably Esselink least so, has got at least one mistake in them each game, and that's costing us big time. That is costing us massively. The goal was shambolic, and to be honest with you, it's not the first shambolic goal we've conceded this season. We've conceded 11 in the league, and I would say 2 of them have been absolutely shambolic. The one against Livi, and then the one against Hibs. Hibs' second goal against us in the 3-3 draw about a month ago now, is it? And then I think 6 of them have been from like cross balls in or corners. And as good as these defenders are, they seem to be a lot better when players are running at them with the ball at their feet. But they just cannot, despite being big guys, they cannot deal with a cross ball for whatever reason. I don't know if it's because of the 3 centre backs and there's maybe a bit of space. Players are getting time and space to put good crosses into the box and find strikers, but we just can't defend a cross ball to save ourselves. It's turning into a bit of an Achilles heel for us, to be honest with you. We can't keep on conceding these goals and dropping points, drawing games or losing games or whatever the outcome ends up being of these games, because we can't outscore teams all the time. That's been proven in the last 2 games. We've scored quite a few goals this season. The goals haven't been flying in, but we've been scoring a decent amount of goals. But against Killie and Livi, 2 teams that you would be looking for at least 4 points, and we've scored 1 goal. It's no good enough. So it's just it's went off a cliff a wee bit for United. But I've got faith that they'll turn it around. One thing I've said to people this season is that it's a team of players who look up for the fight. So I've got no doubt they will be looking at this and will be trying to improve and will come back stronger from it. But we just need to cut the shite out at the back, really. Yeah.
I was wanting to. I was sitting watching the first half, and I was thinking about what Jack said on the podcast. Maybe he isn't as psychic as I'm thinking, because when we were speaking in the preview last week about the Livingston match, Jack, you were saying, well, they've got so and so and so and so and so and so, and they've got Stevie May, and I thought it was 2014 again. Stevie May was absolutely brilliant.
He always turns it on against United.
They love the goal against United, to be fair.
Yeah, he does. And you know what? He's a decent.
He's a good player. He's a decent player, but he's not the player he was back in the day.
No, all it was missing was the curly hair.
Yeah, that was a unique look, was it?
Oh, I know. Jack, I've not seen the second half, so you're going to have to describe the United goal to me.
Yeah, I think it's corner. Player comes in and misses everyone basically. Kreshchev is at the back post. He chests it back towards goal, and he hits it. Tries to hit it in the volley. He slices it, but that takes it away from the goal, and he goes in the back of the net. And then he also had diving clearance. Marcella cleared the ball off the line. I think not long after that either. I'm unfortunate not to score that second goal, but like I said, we don't seem short of chances, and at least we managed to score 1 goal to prevent the defeat.
Am I right in saying that the boy Dolchek got subbed at half time? Is that right?
Possibly. I didn't see the Sibs, but he doesn't seem to have the legs to last the full 90 minutes yet, so I would be surprised.
So these games against teams like Livingston, Kilmarnock, I mean, I've seen both of them this season, and they're exactly the way that you would describe them. They're stuffy, they're hard to beat, they're horrible games to play against. I think it's just a wee bit of a bump in the road for United. I did think that this sort of thing would happen when you've got so many new players, so I wouldn't get too carried away, Martin, and I know that you're not doing that, but I wouldn't get too carried away and
thinking fallen off the bus yet.
No, it's going to happen.
But it's funny, like I was touching on earlier, you go into games against Livi with a certain arrogance, whether it's merited or not. Oh, it's Livi, we should beat them. But there's always been a well-known fact with United fans that we've not got a great record against Livi, and in fact, in 37 total competitive matches against them, we've only won 13 and we've lost 16. So they're actually 3 wins ahead of us in the all-time competitive head-to-head, and we've only got a goal difference of +2 against them in 37 matches. So for whatever reason, I think Livi have always probably just been a club that have been stuffy and streetwise and hard to beat, and the stats against United certainly back that up. It's a really funny head-to-head record we've got against them. You look at that and you think, why have they performed so well against us over all these years? But they have, you know what I mean? And they continue to do so, evidently.
It's a funny one because obviously they were Meadowbank before that. So if you're counting the whole history, including the United's games against Meadowbank Thistle as well, it might kind of change the landscape of that.
I mean, this is just
record.
Livingston Football Club.
Yeah. Dundee very similar with that. I think we've got a better record against Livingston, but our record against the Highland teams is just absolutely abysmal. I think it's a wee bit better against Ross County than it is Inverness, but our record against Inverness is shocking. And obviously Livingston, along with them two clubs, came into the league set up in the 90s, and Dundee, other than a brief spell in the early 2000s, haven't had the best of sides since then. So the records, you're right, you have an arrogance. You're thinking, it's only Ross County, it's only Livingston, it's only Cally Thistle. They've got 56 supporters up in that main stand. We'll beat them the day, no problem. And then they come and they turn you over.
Yeah, it's funny how it works. It was only last season that I sort of begun to realise after... Well, I've been going to the football. I know I don't really go so much now, but I've been going to the football sort of regularly, or semi-regularly, since 2009. And it was only sort of last season I begun to realise that there's really the lack of a gap between the 10 non-Old Firm clubs in the league, whoever that 10 may be, taking into account teams that have been relegated and promoted. It really isn't that much, and we're in a league that, without the Celtic and Rangers, would definitely be the most competitive league in the world, because any team can beat anybody in that league, or sort of draw games, you know what I mean? There's not a lot between teams, and you see that with results like this.
Yeah, I mean, I actually think in the past couple of years that you're starting to see more of a gap between, maybe not so much on field, but certainly within the ability to go and sign players and spend money. You're starting to see a bit more of a gap between the Edinburgh clubs in Aberdeen and the rest. Like Aberdeen, Hearts and Hibs are now going out and spending substantial fees for Scottish clubs out with Old Firm for
but you
players.
Look at the foreign investment that's coming into the Scottish game now. There's a lot of foreign money coming in from Americans and English businessmen and God knows where else.
I mean, it's not translating on the pitch as of yet. Obviously, Hearts have started very well this season and they're top of the league. Hibs have had a bit of a stuffy start. They've done relatively okay in Europe. Probably should have got to the group stage of the Conference League. Aberdeen haven't had a good start to the league. We'll discuss yesterday later on. But if the investment can be invested correctly and well, and the recruitment's good, you could start to see these three clubs in particular create another gap. So you've got the Celtic and Rangers to them three, and then the gap to the rest. It's a wee bit worrying, to be honest with you. You see, yesterday I was kind of poking a wee bit of fun last week at the boy Carlson that Aberdeen had signed on loan, that Bologna had spent 11 million euros on him, and I'm saying that there's a reason why he's here. Like if he was worth the 11 million euros that Bologna paid for him, he'd be at Bologna. Now, he was very, very much aided yesterday, but he looked a level above the rest of the Aberdeen players there. Him and Stuart Armstrong. But we'll cover that later.
Getting the guaranteed, I'll just add one more thing to that. Because Scotland's now, at the moment, got this guarantee of a team out with the Old Firm getting group stage European football, that's a massive draw of players. Hearts have been able to attract some sort of good players because they've had a lot of group stage football in the Conference League. Aberdeen have now got it. The players look for that, and they can use that as a real selling point. Come on to our club and you're playing, what is it? Is it 6 guaranteed games in the group stage, plus a Europa League qualifier that they're going to be getting? So there's 8 games minimum in Europe.
See, the problem with that though is that that's now not going to be a thing as of next season.
Yeah.
The coefficients went down to a level as such where we're not going to get that anymore. So we're relying on Hearts and Hibs and Aberdeen and Rangers and Celtic to do better in Europe, and this season in Europe has been absolutely shambolic. In all honesty, I don't want to be like overreactionary, but Celtic were terrible last week. I never seen Rangers, but they got beat. I think the team with the highest coefficient score this season in Europe's United, and they're not
That is
even in
United.
Europe anymore.
Yeah, we've got 3 points for Scotland this season, so yeah, fly the flag. Why don't you, United?
And just to finish off with the United side of this things, Jack, we were speaking just before we started recording. Obviously, the two home games, 1 point out of 6, not a great return when you look at the opposition. And no, we're not trying to be disrespectful here, but when you're playing Kilmarnock and you're playing Livingston at home, I wouldn't say that you're expecting to beat them, but you would like to think that you could pick up 3 points at home. Obviously, away from home is a completely different story. But Jack, United are a way to go into a tough run of fixtures, aren't they?
Yeah, it's going to be hard to pick up points in the next few games. I think we've got Rangers next. Obviously, just sacked Russell Martin as of yesterday. I think not great to be playing a team when they've just sacked a manager. The players are going to be up for it. That's going to be a hard game. We've then got St Mirren and Motherwell, and then I think it's Hearts potentially. So
Yeah.
it's tough, mate. It's really hard set of fixtures for us. Really. If we can get 7 points from that, I think they'll be happy. Get wins against St Mirren, Motherwell, a point against Hearts, Rangers. It's a lucky hit, really. If we could take 7 points from them, I'd be happy. Whether that's the case or not, it's a different matter. Like you say, the last couple of results haven't been great. We should be picking up 4, possibly 6 points against Kelly and Livi, but that wasn't the case, unfortunately.
And you have to wonder, I mean, so obviously we're entering an international break, so there's a couple of weeks between fixtures, but you have to wonder, Martin, if Rangers will even have a manager in place before then.
Well, unfortunately, gone are the days now when Rangers were a stick-on for 3 points when you play them. Sod's law, it'll be Rangers' biggest home win for about 2 decades when they play United on the 18th of this month, but you never know. They might have. I've seen a rumour that they're after some guy. I think he was an Italian. I couldn't tell you who he managed in Italy, but there's been names floating about. So will they? I don't think they're in a position where they'll have another manager in mind yet, because you're not thinking about new managers only 130 odd days into your new manager's spell. You know what I mean? So there's a chance that they could panic and make a snap appointment, which I think would be to their detriment. I think they've made a few snap appointments over the last few years, and well, we know how that's went for them. They've been mints. But I think what they need to do is really take a bit of time and sort of actually think about who they want to appoint. So they might not have a manager in a fortnight when we play them, but would that make a difference? I don't know. How many times have you seen a team get rid of a manager and then the caretaker manager goes on a 2 or 3 game winning streak? You know what I mean?
I've seen on the news just now that supposedly Sean Dyche is up for taking the Rangers job.
Well, I've got the Bet365 odds here. You've got 2-1 Gerrard, 3-1 Dyche, 4-1 Danny Roll. I think he was at Chef Wed. Then you've got 11-2 Muscat, and I'll not read out the rest of the odds, but you've got McInnes, Marco Rose, Steve Cooper, Barry Ferguson, Gary O'Neill, Solskjaer, Hassan Hüttel, Carrick, Lampard, and Southgate. So
a lot of big names in there.
There's a lot of big names in there. 33-1 Frank Lampard. I mean, that could be 3,033-1. I know that we're talking about Rangers here, and I understand that Rangers are a huge club, global club. Like, I know that we hate to admit that as non-Old Firm supporters, but they're massive worldwide clubs, yeah. Right? But Frank Lampard is not leaving Coventry at the moment to go to Rangers. No. They are doing very, very well. He's not leaving there. So I know that he's at the bottom of the list and he's 33-1. It's just a kind of name that's put there to make up the numbers, but I think you've got no chance of that. I think Sean Dyche is an interesting one. I had a bit of a conversation with a Rangers supporting friend that we all know at the beginning of the season, or the end of last season, beginning of this season. I think it was maybe before that they appointed Russell Martin, and I said to him that I think that they would be better with going with somebody like Sean Dyche. I mean, Sean Dyche has got that reputation in England where he's like old school 4-4-2 fucking thunderball, like hammer throwers, all that sort of thing. I think you might see a different side of Sean Dyche when he's up here and he's got the best players in the league, because obviously Rangers are a side that have some of the best players in the country. Celtic are probably the best team, but Rangers have got a sprinkling of good players that could probably get into Celtic's team, and if he's got players like that at his disposal, I think you'd see a better version of him in terms of, I hate when people say playing football the right way. I'm not saying that, but you might see a different style of football from him when he's not at a Burnley or an Everton when they're really struggling and he's really just having to get results by any way necessary.
Well, they called him the Ginger Mourinho when he was at Burnley, and I think obviously in the Premier League they were never up to much, but you always had them playing really good football in the Championship. So if he's up here at the second best team in the country, he's got that freedom and he's got the players to confidently play that football and not really have much competition when he's playing that style of football. It could be a good appointment for them.
If I was Rangers, I'd go for him or Derek McInnes.
Yeah.
I think Derek McInnes would go to them just now, but
no, I think a lot of Rangers fans are wanting McInnes. And again, this comes back to the arrogance thing that I was talking about, United versus Livi. I kind of mind if it was Radio Scotland or if it was Clyde Super Scoreboard. That I heard a Rangers fan talking, saying the board just need to do it. They just need to get McInnes in. And I know McInnes, obviously, he's got that Rangers link, but is he really going to leave top of the League Hearts to go to a struggling Rangers? Nah, I can't see that happening. No, unless they were offering him.
Is it?
No, unless they were offering him major money and an absolute Euro millions window a transfer kitty.
Yeah, I know. I mean, he's obviously said no to them before when he was at Aberdeen. I think this is slightly different because he's only just at Hearts. They're obviously going well. They've got that excitement around them. One, because they're top of the league and playing well, and two, because they've got the boy blooming. But I think it's a bad time for the talk of Derek McInnes going to Rangers. I don't think it's an impossibility. As you say, if Rangers went to him and said, well, quadruple your wages and give you 30 million to spend in next summer and 15 million to spend in January, he'd definitely go.
Yeah.
But
money talks, does it?
Yeah.
But it'd be a big risk for him. He's got a good thing going on at Hearts right now. And as we've seen, what is this? Is this Rangers looking for their fifth manager in about 3 years? I'd be tempted to say it's maybe not the manager that's the problem at Ibrox, or maybe not the problem. So even if he were to go for the big money, it'd be a big risk for him, throwing away all he's got going on at Hearts to, you never know, 6 months down the line being sacked from Rangers if they continue their rubbish form.
I don't think the manager, Russell Martin, was completely the problem, to be honest with you. I think the recruitment's been terrible.
It has been terrible, and they've got a lot of players there that I think maybe... There's a boy in my work, he's a Rangers fan. This is turning into the Absolute Rangers podcast here. There's a Rangers fan in my work, and I've said to him numerous times, you've got a squad of players who love the big European nights, but when it comes to playing the St Mirrens and the Hibs and the Dundee Uniteds, they just can't be bothered. There's a lot of players that certainly are in the Rangers team and have in recent years been in the Rangers team like that. I've been good players, but just can't be bothered on a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, and it's playing for the Old Firm. You hear it all the time for the other pundits in the world, and it's hard to do with mentality. I mean, it is right. I mean, but I going back to that the Rangers supporting mate that we've got. We're speaking to him about Sean Dyche and whatever. We're having a bit of a debate the other week about their recruitment as well, and he wasn't so harsh as me, and he was kind of sticking up for a few of them, and that's his opinion. That's absolutely fair enough. I think that some of the players that they signed this summer have been absolutely terrible. I don't know what you think, Jack, but you've got boys like Asgard, Ahrens, the boy Giga, the boy Gassam has been alright. He's probably the most brightest spark. Antman come in, played very well to begin with. He's went right off the boil. Miovski's finally scored a goal, but no seen the best of what we can see from him. They started off the season by basically, you could all but see that the boy Tavernier was completely, he was getting emptied. He's now the first name on the team sheet again. Rothwell's another one. I don't think he's a very good player. Jack, I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
I've got to be honest, I've never really seen any of Rangers games to be able to have an opinion on it.
You didn't care either though, do you?
No, exactly. I actually get a fire. But yeah, they've also not been playing well, and that probably has something to do with the recruitment. The manager's not helped in the situation, but if the recruitment's poor, it doesn't really matter what manager you've got, and generally the results aren't going to be great.
I know. Anyway, before this turns into Clyde One Super Scoreboard, we'll move on to what I'm inevitably trying to delay, and that's talking about Dundee's defeat at Pittodrie yesterday. What can we say on that?
Were you up there?
Sure.
I was there, yeah. I'm glad that it wasn't a last night, put it that way, that we're recording this.
You know what, Andy? I texted you 2 weeks ago today saying that Aberdeen are a guaranteed 3 points for yous. And if I could go and quickly find the text, I'll find it. But you replied somewhere along the lines of, no, that's not the case. And you've proven yourself absolutely right.
I mean, I come from a split household, Dundee United fans in my household. And the Dundee United side of the household, obviously at the match along with yourself the other week, my mum, and she comes to me and she's like, they are hopeless, like you have no problem beating them. And I says, Mum, I want to refer you back to the last maybe 11, 12 years of Dundee versus Aberdeen and the history and the fixture. I think Dundee have beaten them like 3 times in 10 years, something mad like that, right? But also last season was a perfect example of it. They beat us on their good run at Dens, and then that was in the middle of it. And then at the end of their good run, they beat us at Pittodrie. I think it was the last game of their really good start. I think they then went and got beat 6-0 at Hampden v Celtic, and then they totally caved in.
Yeah.
They didn't win a game. I didn't even maybe think they even drew a game. That might be a stretch, but they didn't win another game until like February, March time, and it was against us at Dens. So when Aberdeen need a win, they play Dundee. See next season if Dundee were in the Championship, which is every chance, right? Aberdeen start the season badly, we'll draw them in the cup and they'll beat us. It's like the old saying, death taxes, and you could add on to that, and Aberdeen getting 3 points against Dundee.
That's one way to look at it.
Honestly, it's an absolute nightmare. And we've all been to Jack, have you been to Pittodrie? I don't think you have, actually. You said that the last other
Yeah, I've not. I've not been, though.
Martin, he's very familiar, I know, with the Seggy.
4 times, yeah.
The Seggy at Pittodrie is a bit different from a lot of other grounds in Scotland, and they have taken away the fence now. It's like half there, half not. But you get the interaction with the Aberdeen fans, and I've been up there umpteen times, never seen Dundee win. And it's just, you just sit there and you watch them all gloating, and you just want to be anywhere but there. But going back to the match, I mean, they started brightly, maybe first 5-10 minutes of the match, they started brightly, had a couple of shots from outside the box, couple of good switches of play, got into the Aberdeen half, looked slightly dangerous until they got to the edge of the box and everything fell to bits. But as soon as it went 1-0, the roof caved in. I mean, I don't know if you have seen the highlights. It's just the second goal was an absolute beamer. The boys rolling around the grim doing commando rolls and toe pokes the ball at the corner. The first goal was a penalty. We'll touch on that later. But the third goal, I mean, Stuart Armstrong, everybody knows, is an absolute racehorse. He's always been like that. He gets on the ball, drives down the pitch. He's always been full of energy, full of legs. And
he was maybe one player that got pass marks at Tannadice a fortnight ago. He was quite good against us.
Yeah, and he gets down the left hand side, gets the cross in. All the Dundee defenders are just standing ball watching. The boy sneaks in, the left back sweeps the ball at the corner. I mean, they actually scored another goal that got disallowed for offside. And then the second half, I mean, I don't know if you've seen the fourth goal. It's like you could play Benny Hill music behind that. It's just an absolute minter of a goal. And the boy takes the goal well, like nothing against the boy Carlson. I mean, his finish was a good finish. But Clark Robertson has a go at it. Another defender has a go at it. Clark Robertson then slides in, and he's about 4 yards behind the boy. He's never getting there. He then breaks into the box, and you've got Astley, Finn Robertson, and somebody else all marking him. And with one turn, he gets his shot away in the middle of the box.
You know what? I'm just
you
watching
can't
that
take it
goal.
away from the boy. You can't take it away from the boy. It's really good footwork. he does well to get away from the four of them and manage to turn and hit it first time. But he should never be given that opportunity in the first place.
No, I absolutely agree with you, Jack. The finish is a quality finish, and I've got no, I don't want to sit here and say to anyone like it's not a good goal or anything like that. From his point of view, it's a great goal. From Dundee's defending, it's a shambles. He's marked by 3 players in the box. 3 players. He should never be getting a shot away. He shouldn't even be getting turned. Never mind getting a shot away. It's an absolute beamer of a goal from Dundee's point of view. But I mean, yesterday, as I said earlier, I'm glad that this is today, not yesterday, when I'm covering this. I don't want it to be like overreactionary. I'm trying my best to be balanced and everything. Stephen Presley came out yesterday and said he got the tactics wrong and it's on him. And in isolation, I do agree with that. But I feel fucking so sorry on him, eh? Like, you've got Dundee fans going, Presley, get the fuck, and all that sort of stuff. But you know what, right? He applied for it, he took the job, all that sort of thing. Absolutely fair enough. He's been chucked into there by Nelms, by Keys, by Strachan, by the board. And it's like, and honestly, you could have put Sir Alex Ferguson with Jose Mourinho as his assistant into that job, and it would have been the same. It's an absolute shambles of a situation that Stephen Presley's inherited.
I understand that, actually, and I felt the same way about Liam Fox. Obviously, not a lot of good things to say about his United side, but he applied for the job and he was given it. He was given a job that he should never have got. You know, he was not qualified to lead United, and he was drinking from a poisoned chalice, and that was definitely on the people in the background at United who appointed him. And I feel that's the same thing that's going on at Dens right now. Like I said about the Rangers managers, how many managers have Dundee had in the last 3 or 4 years? Probably quite a few. I don't know the exact number, but you've got to look at it and say, is the manager the problem, or is it Strachan and what he's doing with Nelms in the background and their recruitment and their appointment of head coaches? Are they just going for the cheap option who should never be in the hot seat at Dens? Are they going for a guy that they think is going to play attractive football based on, you know, what football was like 10 years ago? Maybe it's just, you do feel for a manager sometimes because they are drinking from a poisoned chalice. You know, Jack Ross was another one at United who I felt exactly the same way. I didn't think he was a particularly bad manager. I just felt he had a squad of players that were letting him down. Massively letting him down. And I think there's probably a bit of that with Stephen Presley as well. I know a lot of the players in that squad have been recruited by him, but I mean, I don't know what Dundee's budget is like, but he's not got millions to spend. You know, there's limitations on the kind of players that Dundee can bring in. And I remember during the close season and just at the start of the season, they were saying on the radio that I think it was Presley himself that said they were struggling to attract players. They were approaching players, and the players were just saying, no, I've got better options, or I didn't fancy coming to Dens. So he is in a difficult situation, you know what I mean?
You can only piss with the cock you've got.
Totally.
Well, I mean, if you believe what rumours you hear coming out of Dundee from the fans and from various different things, social media and everything, I mean, obviously you take everything you hear with a pinch of salt when it comes from fans, comes from social media, etc. But I mean, I honestly think that the Americans, not so much Strachan, but the Americans have turned the Dundee manager role into basically they're taking the scraps from the application pile because nobody wants it now. I mean, you only have to look at a big turning point, in my opinion, was when they got relegated under Neil McCann / Jim McIntyre. And Neil McCann's recruitment in the summer and previous to that, and Jim McIntyre's inability to manage a football team and recruitment in January led to that situation being the summer where it was a massive rebuild. The club was on its knees in terms of that there was nothing about the club. There was so much negativity. I've said it on this podcast before. I'd went to more than 15-20 games that season, friendlies, cup games, league games, and I've seen Dundee win 2 games all season. Once at home at Hamilton and once away at Livingston. 2 games all season, right? So you could imagine you're spending all that money. I mean, I must have spent well over £1,000. You've got your season ticket, you've got your away game, so probably over £2,000. And I've seen Dundee win two matches of football. Now, at that point in time, they'd promoted James McPake to the managerial position for the last game of the season against St Mirren. Interim manager, took the team. He'd been handling a lot of the youth stuff. He took the match, and I think since then you've seen him on Open Goal podcast and various different media stuff. And he said that when he went into the week of training and the match on the weekend, he had no intention of taking it long term. He just wanted to help out, do his bit, and take the match for Dundee. And then after the game, he got a bit of the bug for it. He then obviously applied for the job, or he expressed interest for the job. And if you think back to that time, right, I don't know if you will remember this specifically, but it turned out that it was between him and Jim Goodwin for the job. Jim Goodwin at the time was at Alloa, and I think that you've heard Jim Goodwin speaking about it in retrospect. This was a while ago now, way before he was at United. He actually came away from a meeting with whoever it was, Nelms or whatever, and thought, I have that job. And then he woke up the next day and James McPake had been appointed.
I can remember that, actually.
Now, you look back on that in retrospect, right? And James McPake done what he needed to do for Dundee. The first season, there was a lot of factors. One, there was so much negativity. The whole club needed a complete turnaround. United were a runaway train with Shankland scoring 6 goals a match. All these things, right? But the second season, during COVID, with no fans, Hearts in the first division, which is never going to be favourable to anyone else. You got us promoted through the playoffs and into the Premier League. Now, the next season wasn't a great season. We didn't really recruit at all. We went with what we had and had 5 or 6 players added to the mix. Had a bit of a miserable season and got relegated. Now, I reckon, because not long after James McPake got appointed to that role, Jim Goodwin got the St Mirren job. He did a good job with St Mirren. He got appointed at Aberdeen. Didn't do too well at Aberdeen, but you could see that he's still a good manager. Jim Goodwin has always recruited well. You only have to look at his Aberdeen team. He had boys like Majovsky, Ramadani. I think he signed Duke. All these players he signed.
You only have to look at his United team. He's got some brilliant finds from. Yeah.
That's what I was then going to move on to. Jim Goodwin has had a pre-season, very similar to that of Dundee, where he's actually had to go out and effectively create a completely new team again. And you go through Dundee's team, and United will have a bigger budget than Dundee, but you go through United's team compared to Dundee's team, and a completely new team. Basically, both sides have got completely new teams compared to last season.
We had a massive rebuild.
It's night and day how good each team is. I mean, you only had to watch the derby. Dundee sat off United, and United just done what they had to do. They won the match 2-0. If United went for it full tilt, they would have pumped Dundee.
It is night and day, the recruitment, I think, and the quality of the squads, but you've got to remember as well, we had the draw of European football. We were a team that had done well last season. Players are maybe looking at United saying, "Oh, they're a good team that can maybe only get better." Dundee, I know what I sound like. People will be sitting listening saying, fucking cocky Arab bastard. Who's he think you're saying this? But Dundee are a team that don't really offer that ambition, that growth for players, you know what I mean? And I think that's where Dundee struggle. But that goes back to the board, if the team plays poorly, the manager takes the blame. If the manager's not fulfilling his duties the way it's expected, it should be the board taking the blame. And I think that's where the anger of Dundee fans has got to go. It will go towards Presley because, let's face it, managers are the fall guys, managers are the scapegoats when the team's not playing well. But I think looking from the outside, your problem is what's going on off the park with whatever Strachan's supposed to be doing at the club, and whatever the hell it is Nelms thinks a football club should be run like.
I think when I'm going through the Jim Goodwin thing, I'm kind of telling a story and kind of putting together a big kind of monologue of what I think, and it's yesterday is just the latest episode of what's going on in my opinion. Jim Goodwin, you're absolutely right to say when Dundee have got not as much to offer in terms of United in the summer, European football, top six finish last season, etc., etc., etc. Absolutely no arguments regarding any of that, right? But the thing is that Jim Goodwin still spotted these players. He's got an eye for a player. He's got contacts who are informing him about these people, about these players. Going back to what I was saying originally about the Dundee manager's gig, James McPake gets the job, right? He gets sacked. Everybody's thinking like who's going to take over? We need somebody who's going to give us a kick up the arse for the last 10 matches of the season or whatever. And we appoint Mark McGee. And any optimism that could have been created by a managerial change is there's a pin put through that bubble straight away. We'll go into the pre-season, and the big talking point about our next manager, it's either going to be Sean Maloney or it's going to be Jack Ross, and they were the two names kind of brattled about for quite some time. And I'm absolutely positive that they all but had Jack Ross taking it. And then at the last minute, he was like, nah, actually, I don't fancy this. He then goes to United. That was the same summer. Sean Maloney turned them down, and they ended up with Gary Bowyer. And I actually really liked Gary Bowyer. I think of all the managers that the Americans have appointed, Gary Bowyer has been one of the best ones. And he fell out with them. I mean, he fell out with Nels, which, as we've previously discussed, isn't hard. He's then he's got us promoted. Granted, it was the easiest championship in the world, and we had a decent team, but he never got backed at all. I think he maybe signed one or maybe two permanent players, and all the rest of them were all loans from like Dog and Duck FC from the English fifth tier and everything. Like, that's the type of players we were signing under Gary Bowyer. He gets emptied. Tony Dockery gets the job, and this is where I really wanted to focus on, right? So Tony Dockery gets the job, and we'll finish in the top six the first season back in the Premier League. We had a bit of a go at trying to get to Europe. We'll get beat for Sigmund 4 or 5 goal games towards the end of the season, and that all but kills that. But everybody was carried away that season by how well we were doing. We had some really good players. You had McCowan, you had Cameron, you had Owen Beck, you had Bakayoko. Shaughnessy was a really good signing that season. We had a good team, but the problem was 90% of it was all loan players. Not 90%, that's too much, but a lot of that team was loan players, no forward planning whatsoever. And that is the theme of Nelms and Key's ownership at Dundee. The forward planning is an absolute joke. And that is how we have ended up in the situation that we are now. I know that this has taken 10 minutes to get here, but how on earth you could let it get to this stage where you've got Presley in, and I disagree with what you're saying about the comparison to Liam Fox. And Liam Fox is a young coach who hadn't really ever had a job. I think his job was like Caden Beath or something like that. Stephen Presley's had enough jobs now. He's had 15 years managerial experience to know what he's doing, and he's came in, right, and one of the first things he said when he had signed a handful of players, he goes, we need to stagger contracts out, give some players 2 years, give some players 3 years, so that we're not losing them all at the same time. How has that not been said before now? Because you've got Tiffany, you've got Shaughnessy, you've got Cameron, you've got Mulligan, you've got Portales, you've got Jordan McGee, you've got Mosilla, all out of contract at the same time. And if none of them sign new contracts, you're fucked. And now you're in a situation like what we're in, where I think only 2 players last season signed new contracts. One of them's our third choice goalie, and the other one's Finn Robertson, who I think is one of the players who he'll have a good game in the Premier League every now and again, but he's probably a championship player. And I know
I
that
see a
that's
lot of
probably
Dundee fans
harsh.
calling him out against that in that Aberdeen game. I've seen a few Dundee fans calling him out.
Too lightweight. He's a good wee player. I just think he's just too lightweight in the middle of the pitch in Premier League in Scotland. Seen St Mun last week. St Mun, every one of them's a big guy. Like Aberdeen, Armstrong.
Yeah.
Like you've got Graham Shinney's no a huge guy, but he's thundering into tackles and whatnot. And you know what? I just feel so sorry for Stephen Presley. He's having to take yesterday's on him, in my opinion. The team he picked was wrong, but I feel so sorry for him. He's been put into this situation. He's not been put into this situation, but he's inherited a situation that is not his fault. It's an absolute joke of a situation that Nelms and Keys have continuously let happen. It's happened more than one occasion, and they never learn from it. I know in the summer they've appointed that technical manager, the boy Longwell, who actually sits on the bench, by the way, sits on the bench with the manager and the assistant manager, and is essentially a coach, right? They need more than that, in my opinion. They need to go out, and I know that Strachan's there, but Strachan's more for the youth side. He does give his help into the managerial appointments, and he gives advice and stuff like that. But his role is the youth academy. They need to go out and get a proper qualified director of football, whatever you want to call it, sporting director, whatever it is, that runs the football side of things, because we've had the Americans here for 11, 12 years now, and they've done a lot of good for Dundee. They've kept them stable when they hadn't been stable for a long time. No Dundee fan should forget that. No Dundee fan should forget that. They've done very, very well on that side of things, and it's very much appreciated. But the way that they run the football side of things, they can't do it, and they've been proven not to be able to do it. They need help. They need people in who have got the expertise to run that side of the thing. And I mean, I'm not saying that I want Dundee to be challenging for Europe every single season, but I'm also not saying that I want them to be going up, get promoted back to the Premier League, have a good season, and then have their 2 or 3 seasons of a slide and get relegated again and restart. How are teams like Motherwell, St Mirren, Kilmarnock, who else could you put into that category? I mean, St Johnstone obviously have been relegated, but they had 15 years in the Premier League.
Yeah.
How are these teams all managing to do it? They're no bigger than us.
Yeah, it all comes down to how the clubs run off the park. If you look at United, we've obviously in the same position as you, we've got the American owner. It was clear as day from day one that he didn't have a clue about football when he said that he would like to buy the bit of ground outside Tannadice where the play park is, turn it into a car park and have fans tailgating before the games, which if you don't know what tailgating is, you will, Andy. Yep. It's when you're basically got the boot of your car open, you've got a barbecue on and you're drinking beer. That ain't going to happen in Scotland. That ain't going to happen at a football game anywhere in Europe. He doesn't have a clue about football, but there's a structure at United of guys that do know about football. Obviously, we had Tony Asgar.
I mean, sorry, and I'll interrupt you, Martin. But as far as I'm aware, Asgar's the one who's basically introduced Ogren to the opportunity to buy United.
Pretty much,
now, he's an agent, and Ogren has done the right thing by saying, "Look, I'm the investor. It's my money. I'm going to invest into this business, but I don't know the niche of this business very well whatsoever. So I'm going to put my faith into this guy." Now, the idea of that is the correct one. Now, he just picked the wrong guy in Asgard, who eventually got sacked. But you're a way to probably tell the story. He's then put faith into other people who are clearly doing a better job.
Yeah, there's a structure off the park and behind the scenes that do run United very well. Obviously, it doesn't always go to plan. Sometimes it goes horribly wrong. You know, certainly when Tony Asgar was in, and it seemed like every managerial appointment after sort of Robbie Nielsen was a bit of a cheap option, kind of that'll do. Liam Fox being the prime example of that. I think it was Asgar that actually said Liam Fox was the outstanding candidate. Either that's nonsense and he wasn't the outstanding candidate, or he was the outstanding candidate, and for whatever reason we couldn't attract anybody else. But Ogren doesn't have a clue about football. He just puts the money in, and that's him doing his job. He said when he came here he was doing it to make money. He's got a structure in that can run a football club, and you can only look at it now and say it has worked. You know what I mean? I'm not going to say that we're a great football team, because we're not, but we're a good football team that are competing at a decent level in the Scottish Premier League, and that is down to how we run off the park.
See, the thing with the Americans is when they first come in, they come in a championship season, they've just been relegated. John Bryn was the manager, they got promoted that season, which is, by the way, if you look back in the course of history, one of the best things that could have happened to Dundee, because Hearts and Hibs got relegated that same season and Rangers got promoted from League One. So if they hadn't got promoted in that season, God knows when they would have, right? But they got promoted. The season after that, they done really, really well. They had a good team of players. Hartley was the manager, the same boys like Thompson, Greg Stewart, James McPake, Gary Harkins, blah, blah, blah. See, if you look back on the good seasons that we've had under the Americans in the Premier League, so that season, you could maybe argue the season after that had an exciting team to watch that ultimately finished in the bottom six, and it was a failure because Rangers weren't in the league, Hibs weren't in the league, so that's a failure. A couple of years ago when they had players under Tony Dock, that was probably another successful season. If you look at them, they're purely from luck, in my opinion. There's no thought, there's no planning to get to that stage. So, if you look at Hartley was very efficient in terms of signing players early. He signed players on pre-contracts and got them in the door before they even started pre-season. The year we got promoted, it was Thompson, it was McPake, it was Scott Bain, it was Greg Stewart, it was Gary Harkins. The year after, it was Hemmings, Rory Loy, Nicky Lowe. All these players came in. If these players are coming out of contract, then the recruitment, where's the recruitment? Because if you look into these further seasons as Dundee manager, his third full season where he ultimately got sacked in it, the recruitment fell off a cliff in that season. So that goes to prove to me that there's no forward planning. Obviously, they've put in place now a bit of more of a structure. They've got the technical manager, the boy Longwell there. That might bear fruit in a couple of years. But the problem is, in my opinion, there's a boy on the board who is an equal, and this has to come from Tim Keys, because Tim Keys is the guy with the money. John Nelms is the guy on the ground who's the mate who runs the day-to-day operations of Dundee. Tim Keys has to grow a set of balls and tell his mate, you could run the business side of things, but there's a boy coming in with football expertise who's going to be your equal and is going to run the football side of things. And I'll tell you something, John Nelms, I'm not saying that this is all his fault, but John Nelms, his background is probably business. He can't get a training ground built, and he can't get a football stadium built. I'm not saying that that's all his fault. There's a lot more to that than just him. But any time there's any sort of backlash towards the stadium in particular, Dundee will come out and make a statement. It's got his hands all over it. It's never like, we understand this point of view and we're looking to work with the people involved and da 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 da. It's attack mode. It's self-defence. It's blaming everybody else but themselves. That's not going to work.
No.
It's not going to make anybody want to work with you.
No, sometimes you just need to put your hands up and own a problem and say, look, this is how we're doing, this is my doing, whatever. It's not being good enough. I understand that, and I'll fix it. And it's all fair saying you'll fix it, but you've actually got to do it by making, constructive steps and constructive progress towards something better. But I want to ask you, how do you see Dundee's next 5 years in terms of ownership? Do you think long term, Keys and Nelms are the ones to take Dundee forward? Because you would think after all this time, you would have at least had a couple of seasons consecutive back-to-back top six, maybe pushing for European football a couple of times, maybe a cup run. You just haven't had that, and as a fan myself who's been fortunate, and I do say fortunate enough because I'll never take European football and cup finals and cup runs for granted, I would be demanding so much more from the board and from the owners, you know what I mean? And if they weren't prepared to give it, I'd be saying, look, well, it's time to sell up then and give us somebody who will. And I know that's very easy for me to say, Again, I'm not wanting to sound like the arrogant Arab, but Dundee, they're a team that aren't doing particularly well. I don't know what yous are like financially. Yous have got a stadium that isn't really fit for purpose. It's maybe not the most attractive investment, but as a fan, as a Dundee fan, you're looking at it and thinking, if you're not going to take us any further forward, we need a fresh face at the top level.
Yeah. Tim Keys is a bit like Ogren, to be honest with you. He's there, but he's not there. So he's the one who writes the checks. He's the one that pays the bills. But he lives in America. He doesn't. He's here a handful of times a season. It's John Nelms who runs the day-to-day side of things. They're mates, as far as I'm aware.
But if that's the thing, if that's a kind of I scratch your back, you scratch my back kind of deal, I'd be holding the money man responsible as well. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, like, I get mixed up. Is it Tim Keys? Is he the money man that ultimately is the top boy? Yeah. If he's the one that's keeping Nelms in a job, then that falls on him, I think. And I'd be questioning him, saying, look, this is your money that's getting, pissed up against the wall by your mate here. Either there's a bit of something going on where you're making a bit of a profit and he's making a bit of a profit, financially or otherwise, and you need to take responsibility for this and get it sorted by either getting him to do his job right or getting him sacked and getting somebody else in.
Yeah, I hesitate to come on here and go all guns blazing and say things like, I want Tim Keys to walk away from the club and everything, because as I said previously, Dundee from probably the 70s through to when they took over were run very poorly. Sometimes extremely poorly, when you had boys like Angus Cook in the 80s or 90s, Ron Dixon in the 90s, the Mars in the 90s and early 2000s, who a lot of Dundee fans will appreciate what they did. I caught the very end of it as a young child, and it's the best Dundee team I've seen, but I was very, very young and never really appreciated as much as I would have now. Listen, we've still got a club to support, and we've signed all these great players. So you could say fair enough, but I knocked Dundee 10 years into another administration with the boy Melville, and then we've got these guys in now, and they're running things very well. They're losing money, obviously, but it's their money they're losing because they're putting more money into it to cover it. So it's not exactly like the club's in dire straits. So I don't want to ever come across like I'm not appreciative of them as owners. But as I keep saying, they need to put somebody in there on the board, a sporting director, a director of football, whatever you want to call it, who is capable of running the football side of things. Because the show, well, not so much Keys, as far as I'm aware, it's Nelms who runs the day-to-day stuff. He sacks the managers, etc. They need to put somebody who knows, because they've proven over a long period of time now that one, they can't do it, and two, they cannot appoint a manager. They keep appointing the wrong managers. I mean, Neil McCann, what was that about? They sacked Hartley the match before the split, or the match they had the match before the split, and then they sacked him. They brought Neil McCann in and said, "There's 5 games post split. Keep us in the Premier League," and he'd done it. And then they should have went to Neil McCann. Thanks very much. You're a bit of a club hero for what you've done in the past as a player and now as a manager. Thank you very much, Neil. Away you go back to Sky. But no, they decided they wanted to keep him, and look, he signed well in his first summer, and for the players that he signed to the performances on the pitch, I mean, wow. He then had the worst summer I've ever experienced as a Dundee fan in terms of income, and some of the players he signed weren't good enough to play for Lochie United, never mind Dundee. And he ultimately gets us relegated with the worst Dundee team I've ever seen. There'll never be a worse one. I hated that team with every fibre of my being. But I know that we're speaking about yesterday's match. Yesterday's match was frustrating because of the bigger picture for me. They're not good enough, and there's reasons why they're not good enough, and all these reasons all come from the fact that they've got a board of directors who can't run football operations.
Top down, is it? It all comes top down.
Anyway, So I'm going to bring in Jack because you've not spoken in about a fortnight. This is where ref watch segment that we've not had in a few weeks because the Scottish refs have went from really, really shite to really shite. Anyway, we've only got one to cover, and I think it's going to be a fairly straightforward one this week. Aberdeen's penalty against Dundee yesterday. Jack, what do you reckon?
Double penalty.
Okay.
His hands outside. It doesn't even look like he makes any attempt to move it away from the ball. It strikes his arm. By the rest of the game, it's a penalty, and I can't see any other reason why it wouldn't be a penalty, to be honest with you.
Okay, what do you think, Martin?
Well, I'm going to explain my answer, but I'm going to totally agree with Jack. It is objectively a penalty, but it's a sad, sad day that you've got to look at that and no criticise a referee and agree that that is a penalty, because you look at that and common sense would say it's never a penalty, but that's the rules of the game. That's the laws of the game now. The handball, especially in the box rule, has been micromanaged down to a point where nobody has a clue what is a handball. Is that a penalty? Is that not a penalty? Is that a free kick? Oh, he didn't mean it, or his arm was in an unnatural position. The handball rule is a total shambles, and by the laws of the game, I'm not going to criticise the referee because I think he's actually applied the laws of the game correctly there. I'm not going to criticise the referee. I'm going to criticise FIFA or whoever has made that is a penalty, because it's an absolute nonsense. The Dundee player, he's on the turn. You know, there's a thing called centrifugal force. When you turn, bits of your body move out to the side, as his arm has done. There's no an Aberdeen player near him. Has he gained an advantage from that ball hitting his arm? I would argue, if he has, it's absolutely minimal. But unfortunately, that's where football is now, when stuff like that's a penalty. It's ridiculous that I'm having to say it is a penalty, but unfortunately, looking at it objectively, that's where the game is. What I will criticise, not the referee in the Aberdeen game for, but Scottish referees, is a lack of consistency. Because you do see things like that go unpunished. St Mirren Kelly in the Cup, albeit there was no VAR at that game, because the two teams had agreed not to play it, I'm fairly certain.
Yeah.
I think it was St Mirren took a free kick outside the box, the Kelly players went up, and he has moved his arm up, looking like to make contact with the ball, and nobody saw it. But even in games where there has been VAR, there have been countless controversial handball calls. You know, I can think of a couple that have involved United and Hibs, a team who seem to get the rubber of the green against United all the time. Last season, the Sam Dalby header, which was cancelled out for an apparent handball. Obviously, shock horror, the KMI panel came out and said that the goal should have stood, there was nothing wrong with it. The penalty they got against us the other week, the KMI panel voting 2-1 that it shouldn't have been a penalty, shouldn't have been a red card, shouldn't have went punished. Nobody knows what the rule is regarding handball in the boxes. It's an absolute shambles. Every week there's talking points. You see it down in the English Premier League as well. Every week there's a new talking point about a penalty that was given or a penalty that wasn't given. And it's just... you could sit and ramble on about it for hours. But what's the point? Because it's just a total shambles. And you feel like nobody knows what the rules are.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm coming from a very similar point of view to you. At the time, didn't see it. We were quite low down in the stand. It's at our blind side of the way that Congreve's body position was, and there was players in the way, so you didn't really see it at the time. It wasn't until I watched the highlights that I seen it. I'm very much of the opinion where if you're using the argument of using the current rules and enforcing the current rules, it's probably a penalty. But if I was in charge, it wouldn't be.
They're always going about, oh, well, the arm was in an unnatural position. What does that even mean, an unnatural position? To me, your arm being in an unnatural position is when it's been chopped off and is lying on the floor next to you. Not when it's slightly placed out to the side of your body. I would argue that if that Dundee player was to spin at the speed he did and his arm was stuck to his body, that would be more unnatural than where his arm was.
Yeah,
that's just my take.
It wasn't even that far away from his body, in all honesty.
I think it should be judged by the rule. I said a few weeks ago, it should be judged by the rule. Does the team that handles the ball gain an advantage from the handball happening? Totally. In that situation, he didn't get an advantage. The ball was coming away from goal. He was the only person near it. It's not a penalty. It shouldn't be a penalty. It shouldn't be a foul. But in today's current laws, it is, and it shouldn't be.
Totally. A
You
bit
could,
of common sense applied wouldn't go amiss. I'll just say one thing on that, Jack. That does open the door, and it angers me that I've got to say this, but it's the league that it's the league that our teams play in. You know what's going to happen if you started using that logic. Oh well, Rangers got a penalty, and oh well, Celtic didn't get a penalty. The Old Firm would be at it every other week.
They're
Every other
at
week,
it
the Old
every
Firm would be at it.
they're at it every week anyway, so it won't
They
make a
are, yeah,
difference.
they are, yeah.
you could actually argue that it hits his midriff or his chest before it even hits his arm.
Mhm.
If you look at it at a certain angle, it looks like that happens. So if that is the case, then it's got even less control over where the ball's going to land. I mean, the referee's standing behind them, standing about, 5 yards behind them, and he doesn't give it. And this is where I hate this whole clear and obvious stuff. Like, is that a clear and obvious error? I'm
way.
not sure. Anyway, we'll move on to...
Yeah, one thing I'd like to add on just about that Aberdeen, not so much the Aberdeen game, but what I'm seeing online from Aberdeen fans, I just want to touch on. I'm finding this absolutely hilarious. Aberdeen are a team that, since they won the league against Rangers last October a year ago, have been in absolute freefall. You've never seen a capitulation like it. It's been absolutely shambolic. Now, credit where it's due. They beat Celtic in the Scottish Cup final. That's some achievement, taking nothing away from them. But the boy on their Twitter spent the whole close season bamming off about how they done United out of the Europa League tie, how they done Hibs out their group stage football, and when the football kicked off again, they've been utter mince, bar one game, and that was the game against Dundee. Now, rewind the clock back to last week. Their fans have been in absolute turmoil, since they won that league last October, calling for Talline's head. They were all singing Sacked in the Morning at Tannadice. They go and get beat 3-2 by Shakhtar Donetsk, and all of a sudden they're the best thing since sliced bread again. I just don't get it.
It's a fickle word of a football supporter, that.
It really is. I've seen people going on about that guy they've got. I can't mind his name. He scored the third goal for them against Dundee. I've seen Aberdeen fans on Twitter saying that he's the best sort of left winger stroke left back in the league, and it's just like
Ganucci or something like that, was it?
Where have you been for the last year? You know what I mean? Look at where you are now. You are bottom of the table. 4 goals scored after 8-9 games or whatever it is. All 4 of those goals coming in one game, by the way. You've been beaten every single game except 2. One of them against Livi and one of them against Dundee. And they're back to being the best thing since sliced bread again because they got beat in Europe 3-2. I just didn't get it, but that's Aberdeen for you.
Jack, is United versus Aberdeen a rivalry or a derby?
I was discussing this with you the other day, I think. I wanted to bring it up when we played them. It's a rivalry. It's no derby. Dundee's the derby. I think for Aberdeen fans, it's the closest derby they've got potentially against a bigger club. You could arguably say Inverness, but in terms of stature clubs, we are the biggest club near them, so I would say for them it's a derby, but for us it's definitely not.
What do you think, Martin?
The derby by name only. The Dundee derby's United's derby. End of.
As much of a derby as Dundee or United played St Johnstone.
Totally. I think that's a media thing. The media love to advertise these things as derby games. It probably sells more from in TV packages. I don't know, but no, it's the new firm rivalry, is it?
I was we used to speak to my granddad about stuff years ago, and he always used to say to me that in the 50s and the 60s, like maybe probably the 50s and earlier actually, that the Dundee against Aberdeen was like the New Year derby, but that was because at that point in time United hadn't developed into what they are now. United had spent a lot of their early history in the lower leagues, so the Dundee derby was very infrequent. It didn't happen very often, whereas United and Dundee and Aberdeen were always in the Premier League in that stage of history. But nowadays, I mean, I'm talking as an outsider in this topic, but I wouldn't say it was a derby.
It's no derby, but it's a funny one. I mean, you go to a Dundee derby, and yeah, the atmosphere is absolutely brilliant. But it's definitely friendlier than an Aberdeen game. You go to an Aberdeen United game when both teams are playing well, there's a hatred in the atmosphere that you just didn't get at the Dundee derby. Like Aberdeen Aberdeen hate United, and they hate Dundee as well. They seem to have a thing against Dundonians, but you can really feel a hatred against the two teams when you're playing Aberdeen that you didn't get when you're playing Dundee.
Yeah, we get that. We had yesterday. We had the go home to your caravans.
Yeah.
In your Dundee slums.
Yeah, we had that. We had that a fortnight ago as well. It's like, aye, no bother.
It's actually amusing because, as I said last week, Aberdeen's like the Scottish Beverly Hills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've just got to look at these people and think, aye, whatever makes you smile, eh?
Yeah. Anyway, we'll move on to the rest of the weekend's card in the Premier League. So on Saturday, United 1, Livingston 1, Kilmarnock 2, St Mirren 0, and Hearts winning the Edinburgh Derby 1-0 at Tynecastle with a late goal. Did any of you see any of that Edinburgh Derby at all?
I seen the goal, that was it.
It was poor defending from Hibs with a goal. I don't know if you've seen Martin Boyle's chance when he hit the bar. He hushed to score that, in my opinion. He has to go across the goalie.
I was listening to it on the radio. I didn't. The only highlight I seen was the actual goal, but they said on the radio that Boyle missed a couple of really good chances that he should have been scored now. One thing I will say, that did you see the piss taken from the two teams with the kickoffs that they've done?
Yeah, well, I think Hibs done it. Hibs done it initially for some strange reason, but then Hearts done it to take the piss out of the man.
Yeah.
Quite bizarre. Moving on to Sunday, Aberdeen 4, Dundee 0, Celtic 3, Motherwell Madrid 2, and Falkirk 1, Rangers 1, which inevitably ended Russell Martin's tenure, but we've discussed that, so we'll move on to the upcoming Scotland matches. Martin will be there Thursday and Sunday. Revenge on our mind from the playoffs in March when we play Greece at Hampden on Thursday night, and then Belarus come to Hampden on Sunday. 5 o'clock kick-off, I think it is, on Sunday evening. So, what is your thoughts on them?
I'll start off with the game on Sunday. I think that should be an easy win for Scotland. There's nothing much to talk about that, really. You know, it's that arrogance that I was talking about earlier on, going into that thinking, oh, Belarus, we should absolutely squish them. Let's hope I'm right. Let's hope I'm not eating these words come full time on Sunday. But I think that should be 3 points that we should be looking to pick up fairly simply. Knowing Scotland, it'll not be a 4-5-0 win. It'll be a 1-0 or maybe a 2-1. Scotland didn't win games, you know, by a margin of 2 or 3 goals very often against these kind of teams, but I think they'll get the job done against them. The game on Thursday against Greece, that'll be a tough one. They were really good at Hampden, and they were really good through in Athens when we played them. People forget that we did go over there and beat them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You could argue that it was lucky. You could argue that, you know, it was backs to the wall. But at the end of the day, you know, that's football. You didn't win every game convincingly. Sometimes you've just got to do the business and then soak up pressure. So we can do it, but I think the Greeks are a good-looking team. They've got a couple of really good individuals. That young lad they've got playing for them, he'll probably be about 17 now, I would imagine. But what a player! What a player! Yeah. He was absolutely superb in both those games. And seeing him in person at Hampden was just, he's a cracking wee player. But you never know. It's at home. You never know, eh? It'll be one of these ones that could go either way, I think. Just depends on what Scotland team turns up on the night.
And Jack, the games are on free-to-air channel. They're on BBC, so I expect you to be watching them.
I doubt it, man. I don't really watch it, to be honest, live. I don't enjoy watching them live on telly. I don't get as engrossed as I would in person, which is natural, I suppose. I think my ADHD brain rather do something else at that moment in time. I'm going to echo what Martin said. I think Belarus should be beating them. Got to be confident going into that game. Don't think we're going to punish them, but we should get the win. As for Greece, tough game. I think it's probably level in terms of playing ability in the squad. Greece have got some good players. They've got Pavlidis up top. A couple of the young boys coming through are really good. So that'll be a close game. But you're expecting 4 points, but hoping for 6.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to find out what their squad is, if they've announced it or whatever for the games coming up. Pavlidis, as you say, they've obviously got the boy that played for Liverpool. Is it Simicas? They've got him. So I'm just looking into seeing what the rest of the squad looks like. The only problem is that funnily enough, their whole their squad's written in Greek.
I'm on the Greek FA website right
I've
now.
got it. I've got it here.
Yeah.
So the squad, I think this is the squad. They put up the tweet on the 29th of September. Their names are written down the way that we'd be able to read it. Is the boy, the right winger boy that was the danger man, Constantilius? Pretty sure it was. He's there. Pavlidis is there. Solis, who plays for Bruges, he's there. Simicas.
Solis is a very good player, by the way.
Yeah, he was very good, yeah.
Is that the Konstantinos, is it Karetsas or something, the young lad?
Constantilius. It's Konstantelias.
God knows.
Constantilius. No, I really like the boy Solis, and then Pavlidis is a good striker. So, yeah, they're going to be a tricky game, far trickier game than Sunday on paper. The game on paper will be the game on Sunday will be harder for Scotland. You could just tell. See if Scotland win on Thursday, they'll toil on Sunday. It's just Scotland in a nutshell. Mind the game where they beat Israel 3-2 at Hampden, and I'm not saying Israel are great because they're not, but we beat Israel at Hampden 3-2 in the last minute, and it was all like the atmosphere after the match. All three of us were at that match, and I don't know if Jack will remember, but he was, and we were all jumping up and down in the air. We were up in the top of the main stand, Jack, when McTominay scored in the last minute.
Yeah, I remember that.
We're up at the back of the top tier, and we're all jumping about to Yeserick and Boogie and everything. We're thinking, who have we got on midweek? Faroe Islands away. Oh, perfect, great game. And it took till about the 88th minute or something for us to beat them. So,
like I say, Scotland never convincingly beat the teams that they should. It's always a 1-0 or a 2-1.
No. Anyway, that's something to look forward to, and I tell you something, if they'll get 6 points out of them two games, they're all but there in my opinion. All but in America.
Exciting
and
times.
It's going to cost me a fortune. Anyway, we're moving on to our monthly top fives. Now, as myself and Jack said at the end of last week's podcast, this could be a bit controversial. Martin, as our guest, he is going to join in on this. And the first subject we did was, Jack, help me out here.
It was the worst games of football you've been to.
That was it. The second one was home kits, and now we're going to do hated players. Now, there's only a couple of criteria that they have to match. They have to have played in Scotland, and you have to have watched them play in Scotland, either for your team or against your team. That's the criteria. Martin, as our guest, you can get going. Who is number 5 for you?
Number 5 on my list, I think this is going to be a very random one, and a name that you will probably not expect to be on there, but he's a player that I would say nearly every time I've seen him play against United has managed to wind me up to the point where I'm red in the face, and it's Jordan White, the guy that I think, does he play for Ross County at the moment? But he had played for them in the past, and he was at Inverness for a while, but he used to love a goal against United, and he used to always give it the big one at the fans when he scored, and that just that hits a nerve with me, and I'm out my seat screaming expletives and popping veins left, right and centre, but he used to wind me up something mad.
Okay, to be fair, I think it was Jack had said to you, I predicted one that I thought you might have. We've obviously got 4 more to go, but Jordan White certainly wasn't that person.
No.
Jack, who's number 5 for you?
So, my number 5 is the current manager of Dundee United, and it's Jim Goodwin. I hated him as a player. He was a dirty bastard. Loved throwing elbows at players. I mind the game against St Mirren. Elbowed with balls and Armstrong in the face, and he never got sent off for it. I used to hate coming up against him. He was just a very dirty player, so he's my number 5.
Okay, so for me, I've went number 5. I've got so many honourable mentions. So I actually really struggled with this. Really struggled with this. I think a lot of people see me as a moan. A lot of people see me as a person who hates a lot of players. See, when I was writing this list, I thought I had a bit of an epiphany. I thought, see, other players I hate that I play in England, right? Boys like Pickford and Aaron Ramsdale and Grealish, and just people like that. I hate all them, eh?
I could have went for a lot of boys that play in the Premier League down south, but nah, I didn't really care about English football that much. Yeah.
I used to, and I also thought to myself, I used to be full of hatred more than I am now. So all these players I've got now are all like retrospect, and I couldn't really care less now. If you were to say to me, is there anybody that you hate in Scottish football now? Couldn't really be bothered hating anybody. But anyway, number 5, I've went with Billy Dodds. Little Judas bastard for going from playing for Dundee and signing for United on about 4 occasions. But the one that I remember him, I have seen him playing for United on more than one occasion against Dundee in the early stages of going to watch Dundee. But the thing I remember him for was when he was back at Dens as assistant manager to Gordon Chisholm. They were in administration and he voted against Dundee's, is it CVA or something it's called. Now, people will argue that he was shafted out of money. I'm not going to argue with that because that's absolutely right. But he effectively voted for me not to have a football club anymore. And then he turned up to try and be Jim McIntyre as assistant manager and was all shocked that he wasn't getting the love of the supporters, and then went on Radio Scotland and started crying about it. So, fuck Billy Dodds. Anyway, Martin, on to yours, number 4.
What more do I need to say? Jack's said it all. Number 4 for me is Jim Goodwin. A player, he's one of these players that you would love if he played for you, but when he played against you, you hated him. And what sparked it for me was, this top 5, there's probably so many more players that I could put on this list if I went through every game and relived every moment of anger that I've ever had at a football game, to be honest with you. But a couple of real standout moments from Jim Goodwin amongst his generally aggressive style of play when you played against him. Obviously, the Stuart Armstrong elbow in the face moment, I was at that game, I remember it, and I remember going off my nut. And I also remember there was a game we played St Mirren at Tannadice, and he actually ended Scott Severin's career, went in for a tackle, gave Scott Severin a triple leg break, and I kid you not, every single person in the ground, player, coach, manager, home fan, away fan, just drew breath in through their teeth. Everybody felt that tackle. I think play was stopped for about 10-15 minutes while they got him off the pitch, and it was just another big, massive incident that happened involving him against United, and I could never take to him after these two things, every time you played it. And he probably knew that, and he probably tried to throw a wee elbow in when he was up against United just to get the fans wound up in that, as players are well within their right to do, and as I would encourage players to do, because you know what, we all like having characters in the game. We don't want players that are totally sterile, love them or hate them, you need players that are going to wind you up, and if they play for yourself, wind other teams' fans up, So yeah, Goodwin was number 4 for me. I love the guy now, but I was never a fan of him in a St Mirren shirt.
Do you not get that there's nobody like that anymore?
Nah, there's no personalities.
There was one boy that is like that. It was the boy Phillips that plays for St Mirren. Mm-hmm. He's got a bit of a personality.
Yeah.
But none of them do it now.
It's because they all get media trained when they're at youth level. How to talk to cameras and that.
Jack, number 4.
Number 3 for me, I went with Elhaz Juve. He was at Rangers for half a season or something, I think, but he proper wound me up. He was an arrogant sod. He thought it was a bollocks. He wasn't. He went to go Rangers, so he must have been somewhat decent. But I'd never liked the boy. Like his confidence, arrogance. My dad hated him as well. Probably rubbed off on me a wee bit as well. So yeah, other than that, no particular moments I can think of. But I'm going to go Elhaz for number 4.
Okay. So for me, number 4 is a man who you might have not thought of when you were writing these lists, but as soon as I see his name, you're going to be like, yep. And that was Darian McKinnon.
Who's he again?
Hamilton.
That name rings a bell. That's getting my blood veins popping as you say it, actually.
Played centre mid for Hamilton.
Yeah.
Was he not Hibs for you?
No, he was at Partick Thistle.
I can't think of him.
He's back at Hamilton now. He's assistant manager for Hamilton. I'm actually pretty sure he played for them the other week because they've got no players. But he was one of the boys who He played for Hamilton at the time where Dundee and Hamilton were going for the first division. We got promoted, and all our players took the piss out of them. And then they won the playoffs against Hibs and got promoted as well. So we still played them the year after. And where there was for about 2 or 3 seasons, there was always Needle in the games against Hamilton. He scored a goal against us once, and he ran up to our fans and done all the get up. He's just a wee Ned, basically. But there was one incident in particular where we were playing Hamilton at Hamilton, and they had, I think, David Templeton got sent off, I think. And then he went off injured, and they went down to 9 men. We scored the goal in like the 99th minute. It was like 9th minute injury time to win 2-1. But he went off injured. He got tackled in the box. He basically tried to end the boy. We had a young boy called Matty Henvey, and he actually scored in the match. And he put an outrageous tackle in on him. Outrageous. And how he never broke his leg or buckled his kneecap in half is beyond me. Matty Henvey maybe had to go off injured or to finish the match and then was out for 6 months or something like that. But he got injured in the process of being a dirty bastard. And he went off injured behind the goal, where the Dundee fans were all congregating because it was 90-odd minute, and he was spitting at kids. So, fuck him, right? So anyway, we'll move on from him because he's an absolute dirty bastard. Anyway, number 3 for you, Martin.
Number 3 for me, I've got my first Old Firm player in here, Kyle Lafferty.
Oh, I knew he was going to be in it. I called it.
You know what, right? And it wasn't even for anything that you particularly done against United specifically, but you probably know what's coming here, Andy. He used to love a goal against United, as he did against many teams, because he was a decent player. But he always done this really, really annoying robot dance whenever he scored, and I don't know why, it used to just fucking wind me up to fuck. I hated seeing him do that dance when he scored against us, and I just... The Rangers fans would be going mental. United then silent, I'm up there absolutely screaming, yeah, fucking... that. Just a real annoying player. Not even a player that I particularly hated himself, but just that one thing he done used to wind me up.
Anyway, we'll move on. Jack, number 3.
Number 3 for me, I went Chris Boyd.
I feel like that might not be the first time he's featured.
Yeah. He's a good player, no doubt about it. Scored a lot of goals for Rangers, but didn't protect him at all. Especially the backs, as would do most of these players, to be fair. And I just don't like him at all. He wound me up every time he was on the pitch. He's a weak fat bastard, and just managed to always score a goal and winding me up. So he's number 3.
Number 3 for me. To be honest with you, I hate him more as a manager than I do as a player. I didn't have any sort of hatred towards him as a player, but I hate him as a manager. But I did see him playing, so I'm using that as a bit of a loophole, and that is Derek Adams. What a little weasel of a man he is, by the way. Right? Absolute greeting-faced little weasel. And nothing will ever sum it up better for me than the last time we played them, when he was their manager, and he done nothing but cry after we beat them in injury time, and he was crying and crying and crying, and he ended up getting sacked for not that long later. But he's just a little crybaby man, little man syndrome, and nothing will ever bring me more joy than when Jamie Hamill scored that penalty for Hearts. He ran up the touchline and clotheslined them with the flare. Absolutely brilliant. But anyway, we'll move on. Number 2 for you, Matt. Who you got?
Number 2 for me, Scott Brown. Again, a player that I really used to hate seeing him play against United, but I loved him when he played for Scotland, and that just sums the guy up. He's the kind of player that if he played for you, you absolutely loved him. As the Celtic fans obviously did for the time he was there, but up against you, you hated him because he was aggressive. He seemed to win most of the 50-50s that he went for, and he was a good player as well, And he just had this arrogance about him. And you know what? fair play to the guy. The arrogance was probably merited because he was a good player at Celtic and accomplished player, well decorated player at Celtic. But I think every football fan in the country that doesn't support Celtic would have him in the top 5 just because there was probably a wee bit of envy in there at how good a player he was playing for Celtic. But I hated him in the Celtic top. But credit where it's due, when he played for Scotland, I absolutely loved him. He was brilliant in a Scotland top.
I did think that Scott Roman would be featured one of these lists.
Yeah. Love-hate relationship.
Number 2, Jack, who have you got?
Number 2 for me, I've got the wee rat, Lee Griffiths. Less said the better about him. He's a wee thief. Looks like a rat. Yeah, definitely number 2, Lee Griffiths.
Did have had back, Jack, eh?
Oh, God. For me, number 2, I went for Nadir Chiefji. Absolute animal of a boy. Absolute knob end of a boy. And if you bite somebody, you're in my list. So, not only was he an absolute dickhead, but he also bit somebody as well. So, I'm not going to speak any more about him. The last time I seen him playing was for St Johnstone. And he went half injured. He pulled his hammy. So he ran into the box. And he obviously pulled up. And the whole way in, whee, and he had to walk off and do the walk of shame round past the Dundee supporters. The wanker sign, the 2s up, the 1s, every single hand gesture was getting put towards him. Everyone's going, whee. It's one of my favourite things in football, that. But
you'll have to see it, yeah.
Number 2 is Nadir Chiefji. Number 1 for you, Martin. Who have you went for? Who got the number 1 spot?
Can I just say, Andy, before I give you number 1, I know exactly who your number 1 will be, and I can't wait to hear you talk about him. can't wait to hear you talk about him. My number 1 is a guy who has already been mentioned, and you can probably guess his name. It is the wee fat bastard himself, petty wee guy, Chris Boyd, for many, many reasons. Again, I'll give him credit where it was due. He was a good player. Twice in his career he scored 5 against United. In 2004, Kelly beat United 5-2. He scored 5 goals. In 2010, I think this was Peter Houston's first competitive game in charge. United went to Ibrox midweek and had an absolute howler, got beat 7-1 off Rangers, and I'm sure Chris Boyd scored 5 that night as well. But that's not why I hate him. I just thought he was, and I've got no doubt he's a good guy, but on the park and when he's got a microphone at his mouth, he's just one of the most pathetic wee guys in football, I think. For a player of his quality to never have to spend so much time on his arse looking up at a referee with his hands in the air, I just think it's absolutely pathetic. 2010, when we played them in the Cup at Ibrox, Gary, he brushed Sean Dillon, went down, arms flailing, of course. Dougie McDonald, I think, was a referee. Penalty Rangers. That was a bit of a theme with Dougie McDonald, but we'll leave him for another day. There was one time at Tannadice as well, and I've looked for this a lot of the times on YouTube. It used to be on YouTube, and I'm pretty sure the video was titled Chris Boyd Falls Over a Blade of Grass. He's chasing the ball with Darren Dodds. Obviously, a snail had beat Darren Dodds in a foot race. He gets about 5 or 6 yards past Darren Dodds, throws himself to the deck, sits up, arms in the air looking at the referee, and even the commentator says, I think it was the commentator that had actually said, he must have tripped on a blade of grass. Just a pathetic excuse of a football player. Good football player, but pathetic at times, and that just used to wind me up. And as a pundit as well, I think he's a very, very bitter man.
He certainly does a lot of moaning as a pundit.
Oh yeah, he loves a moan, aye. He loves a moan. And I'll tell you what, you think, if you were to listen to him, you think Rangers were the hardest done by team from referees in Scotland.
Oh, I can.
Yeah, it's cry me a river, Chris.
I almost think... On you go.
No, they certainly weren't the hardest done by team when he was going down left, right and centre, getting penalties and free kicks. But
no,
yeah.
I almost think that he goes too far in his role as a pundit. You watch Gary Neville's got his faults, but Gary Neville always says he maintains that he'll never call for a manager to get sacked. I don't think Chris Boyd's ever explicitly came out and said that Russell Martin, this is the example I'm going to use, should be sacked. But he's done everything but that. Ever since Russell Martin's been there, and I get it, Rangers haven't been good enough, right? But Chris Boyd goes on that show as a pundit. He lets his emotions get the better of him, and he absolutely slaughters the manager. I don't think that's his job. But
Like I say, I've got no doubt it's a guy, he's a good guy, you know. If I was to sit down to have a chat with him about football for hours on end, but I thought as a player, just as good a player as he was, a lot of times it was just pathetic, and you're just like, mate, you're a good football player. Get off your arse and play the game, eh?
Jack, number one, who's took your top spot?
Right, number one for me, it might be a bit of a surprise, but I'm going to call Dawson.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, United. He it was the way he played. It was the way he put himself off at United. He was arrogant. He was cocky. He was shite. He just thought he was a dog's bollocks, and he was terrible. He then left, played for other clubs, Inverness, and that, and always seemed to give it the big stuff, thinking he was the dog's bollocks. Always gave it to the fans. Fans gave him it back. I've actually seen a podcast on him on Open Goal the other week, basically admitting that he was an arsehole at United. So I gained some respect for him for that, but I'll never stop shouting at him and calling him a fucking wanker, essentially. So,
Jack, see if you die before me, I'm going to get on your headstone, call Donaldson, he was arrogant, he was cocky, he was shite.
Superb. Was it the cup semi-final, Jack, against Hibs, where we got beat and that goalkeeper, Conrad Logan, had an absolute belter, or whatever his name was, and at full time he's having a laughing joke with Hibs players? It's like, come on, mate. There's a time and a place, and it's no on the pitch at Hampden when you've just been put out
yeah, exactly.
by Hibs, you know what I mean? Like, come on, play the game.
Yeah, well, I think he's a Highby. I think he was a Highby, or he's a Highby or a Jambo. He's from Edinburgh.
Is he a Hibs fan?
He's a Hearts supporter.
Hearts,
He said it on Open Goal.
Yeah, well, either way, you shouldn't be doing that just as your team's lost in the semi-final. Okay, what I mean? So,
number one for me, Martin's said that he's expecting this. I hate to be the one to disappoint, but I'm not gonna. It's Nacho Novo. Little oxygen thief of a man.
That is surprising, by the way.
That's what I thought it was going to be.
Would you think it's that surprising? He's an absolute knob end.
That's what I thought he was going to
go. He's a Dundee legend, no?
No, he's not. Right? Oh my God!
Certainly not in the Derry, anyway.
He went to Rangers, right? And he came on as a subbie. And the first time he was back, I was actually watching the game on YouTube. The archive boy put it on YouTube a couple of weeks ago, and I was sitting watching it. And it's he comes on as a subbie, and he gets the usual kind of pantomime boos and all that sort of stuff, but nothing too much. And he comes on, and he's getting booed every time he touches the ball, and it's just boy returning to a club that he left. Like, it wasn't anything over the top. 0-0 it was, and he scores at the Bobby Cox end. Runs past Bobby Cox, kissing his badge, all the way up to the Rangers supporters. 5 minutes later, scores again, does it even more, right? But at the time, Dundee were giving the Rangers and Celtic fans the derry to get more money, because they're just the administration. And at the end of the game, he had a scarf around his neck. He was on the ground, like doing like the praying thing with his arms, like going up and down with his arms to the Rangers supporters, kissing his badge and all sorts. And that alone, he's just a little knob end for that. And then he used to come out and say, when I was a boy, I supported Rangers. Because when you're living in Spain, you're thinking, I'm going to support Rangers rather than Barcelona or Real Madrid. Just full of absolute nonsense. I remember he came back for a League Cup game. Dundee obviously, he played Dundee that season, and then Dundee got relegated, so he was never at Dens for a while. But then he came back to Dundee in a League Cup game, and that's probably top 3 in the players I've seen get abused for Dundee supporters. Because Dundee sold out that night. It was when they had Harkins, Griffiths and everything. They were going well in the Championship, and there was a lot of optimism around the club at the time. And they sold out for the quarter-final of the League Cup against Rangers, complete sellout. And it was a great atmosphere at the match, and he got dogs abuse. And I've only ever seen 2 players get abused like it from Dundee supporters. And yeah, he's my number one. Before we move on to the Futbology Challenge, Martin, have you got any honourable mentions?
You know what, I've got one honourable mention, and I could have probably thought of more, to be honest with you, but it's another Old Firm player. It's Alan McGregor. Just, you know, I've criticised Chris Boyd about being a pathetic wee guy, but I think McGregor's just an angry wee man, Just an angry wee guy that loves to get angry at other players and do shit that he really doesn't need to do on a football pitch. I don't know why that's the case, but yeah, just an angry guy. Really good goalkeeper, a really good goalkeeper for Scotland, but nah, I didn't like him, eh?
Like, before I get you in, Jack, for your honourable mentions, because I know that you have some, I think this has kind of looked into the psyche of us. I hate United players, Martin hates Old Firm players, predominantly Rangers ones, and Jack just randomly hates anybody.
Including players of his own team.
Cole Donaldson. Anyway, Jack, honourable mentions.
Well, now the honourable mentions, there's a common theme among them all. So, I have Ian Black, Paul Rafferty, Richie Foster, Charlie Murray, Joey Barton, Lee McCulloch, Scott Brown, Barry Ferguson, and Alan McGregor.
Okay. That's like Martin's reserve list.
Yeah. I'll just repeat your words, Jack.
So, for mine, the first one I've got is Jim Thompson. Now, you two will not be aware of who Jim Thompson is, right? If you're into football in your mid to late 2000s, you'll know who he is. He played for Queen of the South, centre half, bald head, he was their captain. If you watched their cup final against Rangers, he scored their second goal. But he was just one of the old school, horrible centre halves, and he used to get away with murder when he played against Dundee. And he was like the ultimate pantomime villain. You know, he's a bit like, probably the best way to describe him, he's a bit like the boy Gogic, right? Absolutely horrible player, and he would get away with it every time, and Dundee fans used to have a love-hate relationship with him. But anyway, him, Peter Pollock, because he's a diving little bastard, Gary Mackay-Stephen is another one, Paul Dixon, the little bastard, Lee Mayer, Judas bastard, Dougie Imrie, he was going to go in there, but I've actually quite started to warm to him as he's been a manager, so he never made it. And the last one was Paul Payton. But yeah, we'll move on from absolutely slaughtering players, and it's all a bit of fun. But yeah, well, everybody has somebody they didn't like.
They're all good lads, really.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things that's one of the things that's what's kind of made me the way that I am now. One, because I'm an adult and not a child and hate everybody. Another one is podcasts. See, when you see them like just as they normally are, like a normal guy, and you didn't see them as the footballer on the pitch. It's like chalk and cheese.
Totally. I'm not right. I've never been able to kick my own arse with football, right? But see, if I was a football player, I would be one of these guys. I would be leaving elbows in and winding fans up and everything. I'd be exactly the thing that I hate in opposition players. You know what I mean? It's part of football, is it? And you know what? May the day never come when these players don't exist. Because could you imagine could you imagine watching your team over the course of a season and not having players that you maybe give a bit of extra shite to from the stands? Like, that's football, and you need that rivalry, you need that little bit of toxicity in there just to make it a wee bit more entertaining. You know, if we ever get the sanitised, watered down version of football atmosphere that they've got at a lot of places in England, you know, I rue the day that when that reaches Scotland there.
I think it's definitely went that way though. See, if I compare it to where I went when I was young, it's different.
That is different, aye.
When we used to play St Johnstone and Alan Main was in the goal, he got unspeakable amount of abuse. I mean, unspeakable. Like, and back in the day, I was only like a young guy, and you got swept up in it. But see, when you think back and think to yourself the things that the Dundee fans used to shout at that man, honestly, like really, really bad. But you didn't see that anymore. Like, this is what I'm saying. Like, well, the last time I seen Chief G when he was playing for St Johnstone, and he come off walking behind the goal, he was limping off with his hamstring, and he was getting pelters. You didn't see that very often now. Like, Armstrong got a bit of stick yesterday for about 5 minutes, and it was a bit. I'm talking about like back in the day when I was going to football as a young person, as a young guy, teenager and whatever. It was like the whole stand giving people shite. Now it's nothing like that.
Yeah. You know, one of my honourable mentions, McGregor, there was 2 songs United fans used to always sing about him. And I'll repeat them on the podcast because you'll probably get the podcast taken down and definitely banned. But these 2 songs, you just wouldn't hear that kind of thing being sung at a football game. And you know what? They weren't even that bad, you know what I mean? Like, it's nothing that would get you in trouble with the law or anything, I would think. But no, you would never hear a stand of fans singing what United fans used to sing Alan McGregor. And probably fans at other clubs as well would sing the same songs to him. But you might even know what I'm on about. But
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Well, we'll move on though. We'll cover the Futbology challenge before we finish up. Now, we saying to Jack, Martin, before you joined, just before we started recording, that I'm starting to think that the 1-0 defeat for a forfeit should be increased, because I'm absolutely sick and tired of having a game every single week and Jack having none, and my goal difference is about -40 and his is -2. It's no fair. Right, anyway. Martin and Jack both had forfeits this week, so the dog shit challenge continues. I had 3 games. One was a win, two were defeats, and obviously the biggest defeat was the one that was picked. So my game was from October the 6th, 2012. It was a game at Easter Road. Dundee were playing Hibs, obviously. A crowd of 10,163. Starting 11s for Hibs, first of all: Ben Williams, Tim Clancy, Ryan McGivern, Paul Hanlon, James McPake, Gary Deegan, George Claros, Paul Kearney, David Witherspoon, Jack's mate Lee Griffiths, and Owen Doyle. And on the bench, Sean Murdoch, Alan Maybury, Tom Taiwo, Alex Harris, Danny Handling, Ross Caldwell, and Chef D Cookie. And Dundee starting 11: Robert Douglas, Kyle Benedictus, Brian Easton, Davide Grassi, Gary Irvin, Ryan Conroy, Ian Davidson, Mark Kerr, Jim McAllister, Kevin McBride, and Colin Nish. And on the bench, Alex Baird, Declan Gallagher, Matt Lockwood, Nicky Riley, John Baird, Martin Boyle, and Stephen Milne. The goal scorers were Doyle 29, Griffiths 51, and Witherspoon 74. Now, looking back on this season, you guys will probably remember this season, because I think we were still at school at this time. Probably about 5th year or something it was. We were at the school, 12-13 season. Dundee, they've won very little in this season. There was the season that they were parachuted into the league, because Rangers got demoted. And we were a first division team in the Premier League and didn't fare very well. But I loved that season, thinking back on it. It was one of the first season, well, it was about the second or third season where I was going home and away with my mates. It was the first season we'd been in the Premier League for years, so you were going to a lot of grounds that I hadn't been to. There was just something about that season. Obviously, the results on the park weren't great. I'm not going to say to you guys, ask if you remember anything about this game. But what about the players that were named? Any names that stick out from either of the teams?
Well, obviously there's still some boys going that are still kicking about. Martin Boyle being one of them now at Hibs. He was on the bench, I think you said, wasn't he?
He was. Did he come on? I'll just double check. If my mouse wants to work. He came on as a 68th minute substitute for Ian Davidson.
Yeah, he's obviously a good player. He's had a good career. Obviously at Hibs now. Some other names are ringing a bell, but not too many. Was it James McPake, obviously? We all know them well. Some of the Hibs boys, Hanlon, I think he's just retired recently, or he's still kicking about with Wraith Rovers. But yeah, some boys there, good players, but most of them I don't really remember.
And Martin, what about that era of Hibs teams and Dundee teams? What's your memories of that?
In that era, Hibs teams, they were a sort of average team at that, if I can remember correctly. They weren't particularly bad, but they weren't a particularly great team. I think they had, when I first started going to the football, they had a good season, that 09-10 season, and they were sort of challenging United for third place, but kind of tailed off as the season went on, and ultimately United would go and get third place. But I think they kind of petered out in the sort of the following seasons after it, and then went through a bit of turmoil, getting relegated and that. So yeah, Hibs, it was always a big game, but it was never I would never say it was like a big game where you were thinking the winner was going to move up the table into a position of real strength.
No. But yeah, that puts us into a position where I'm still second, Martin's still top somehow, and Jack's bottom, but Jack's got a far better goal difference than me because he's getting forfeits in a 1-0 defeat. So, yeah, that's great. Also, what I've started doing is I've started putting I've always done the league table and the results of they'll be on screen at the moment if you're listening on YouTube. If you don't listen on YouTube and you listen on Spotify, Apple, etc., I've started putting the results and the league table on Spotify. You'll get that on our highlights of our story. Not on Spotify, on Instagram. You'll get that on highlights of our story. So if you want to go and check out the league table, there's about 8 points in total on it. You'll see Martin and Jack's forfeits, and you'll see my 3-0 defeat from Hibs. So yeah, great. I'll also start putting the monthly top 5 lists on Instagram as well. So if you forget about that or you want to have a laugh about that, they'll be on there as well. That concludes episode 15 of the Sandeman Street podcast. Just as we're touching on social media, Instagram. The Instagram is at the Sandeman Street Pod. That is at the Sandeman Street Pod. And our Twitter or X is at Sandeman ST Pod. At Sandeman ST Pod. So if you could give us a follow on them, you comment on our stuff to let us know how you think we're getting on. That would be much appreciated. If you could give our YouTube channel a subscribe, like our videos, that would be great. Thanks very much for listening, and come on Scotland.